Saturday View on Midlands 1A3. With thanks to Lumclean Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. LumcleanEnergy.com. Have your say. Call 0818 300 103. Text or WhatsApp your Saturday View to 083 3010 103.
Hello and a very good morning to you. It's Ronan here and it's time for Saturday View here on Midlands 103 and lots to ponder and discuss this morning. I will have probably the best non-electric picnic related music story for you this weekend. A really interesting event happening in the Midlands in the next couple of weeks. A well-known musician, founder member of a world-famous band, will be commemorated by his local community. So you're going to hear all about that very, very shortly. Also, we'll look at all those kind of pressing things that are happening around the country, and the one thing that has been dominating the headlines for the last 24, 36 hours has been that horrific stabbing incident in Renmore. And overnight and this morning, more information coming to light. And if I refer to this morning's Irish Independent, we see a headline like "Radicalised Boy 16 who allegedly stabbed army chaplain had come to Garda attention for terror reposts." He's been suspected of having been radicalised online by a group such as ISIS, and indeed had been plotting and planning the attack on Father Paul Murphy for some time, or maybe not just the priest directly, but somebody in that area. Other newspapers reporting online that it was apparently linked to protesting at the Irish Army's involvement in Mali for peacekeeping duties and stuff like that. But it is an incident where online radicalisation appears to have played a huge role. Irish-born citizen, and has still carried out that attack as well. The papers also go on to commend the response of the Defence Forces too. And Declan Power in today's Irish Independent says composure and quick thinking of our soldiers were a difference between life and death in attack. Because like that, a lot of, call it chatter, emerged online over the last while, particularly rumours about a suspect, what might have happened, what a motive might have been before even the Gardaí could even get a chance to investigate. More has come to light in the last, say, number of hours. And indeed, there was also questions asked about the Defence Forces. They have a protocol, how they react, how they defend, and how they de-escalate an incident such as this. And many people that would be, well versed in that area are commending the Defence Forces for the response in such an incident. It is such a rare and isolated one. And thankfully, I suppose, the most important thing there is that Father Murphy is doing well, and issued a statement from hospital last night that he is doing well, and thanked people for all their prayers and well wishes. I say lots kind of moving and changing and breaking in that story, and if we can get an update on it between now and 11 o'clock, we most certainly will bring that to you. If you want to be part of this morning's conversation, 083 3010 103 is a text and WhatsApp number. You get me here directly live in the studio. Otherwise, you can give us a call on 0818 300 103. Nelly is out in the newsroom there, happy to take your calls, because there's lots of other stuff. Yes, EP will be dominating some of the headlines this weekend, and some of the, bringing a feel-good factor, but not all kind of great stories too. I mean, during the week, obviously, there was that story about how some local producers felt they were being somewhat excluded because big business had bought out the rights to sell their produce there and all that. Yes, we see loads of businesses trying to make money and try to, kind of really capitalise on such a unique festival. Even a company from the Midlands now set up to basically repurpose and resell tents that are left behind by Electric Picnic. And sometimes we come out and we go, how can someone do that? Why would somebody repurpose tents? Should they not give them to the homeless? Well, sometimes you think of all the issues with tents in Dublin over the last couple of months. But the big point is, people buy tents, sometimes quite expensive tents, and just leave them behind. It says a lot about us, doesn't it, our culture? I mean, I remember years back, and I'm talking a good few years back when I was in college, and a lecturer mentioned that you can tell how well a country is doing economically by the waste and by what people throw out. And what he meant was, when the country was prosperous, you would see things like TVs left out beside bins back. We're talking now in the late 90s, early 90s. There'd be TVs left out. The rubbish waste collectors were collecting, like packaging off TVs, off large household items. You could get a sense that things were going well. If you were going into a recession, people were more inclined to seek out to repair electrical devices rather than replace. So is the fact that so many tents are just discarded and left behind, not accidentally, deliberately left behind at festivals like EP every year, is it a real sign of the times of where we are? And is it something that we should all, should we not be fined for leaving stuff like that behind? It really is scandalous. And we turn around and we want somebody else to clean up after us. It's not a great message to be teaching people, and not a great image to show the world, I think. But you let me know what you think. 083 30 10 103 or 0818 300 103. Would love to hear what you think about that, or anything else that's happening around the Midlands over the weekend. Now, I mentioned my school days there. And yes, I can still remember them. But what shocked me was I discovered that actually in next September, it will be 30 years since transition year kind of first really became a thing, since those first programmes and trials took place in Irish schools. And I can remember it quite well myself, because back at that time, you went first year, second year, third year, straight to fifth year, sixth year, out the other end, onto college if you were lucky, or onto an apprenticeship, or whatever path you wanted to choose. You never really asked where was fourth year, whatever happened to that. So I'm going to put that question to somebody now very shortly. But I remember transition year became a thing, and about maybe 20 or 25 of the guys, I was in an all-boys school at the time, decided to do the transition year. And yeah, we had a good laugh at them. We said they were always just dossing, they never really did any work. And then we heard them going off doing things like work experience, and they were setting up mini companies, and they were learning stuff about financial management and getting a bit of exposure to businesses out there. And but the question always emerged, is that a great thing? Was that the right thing? Or is it just another year in school when maybe some people want to try and get out the other end as quickly as possible? But whatever, it remained a very successful trial. TY is still very much a thing. Some schools, I believe, it became mandatory for a period. I'm not sure whether that's still the case, but we'll find out now very shortly. And some people really extol the virtues of it and see it as a huge, formative year where they learn so much, they gain some outside experience and everything else, and life experience, and it really sets people up for the Leaving Cert. On the other side then, people say it's a pure DOS, it's a waste of time, and we're just delaying somebody getting out there, getting educated, getting into the workforce. Well, let's put this to Betty McLaughlin. Betty, of course, is from the Institute of Guidance Counsellors. She's a former president and former guidance counsellor at St Mary's CBS in Mullingar, and a regular contributor to Midlands 103. Very good morning, Betty.
Good morning, Ronan. How are you?
You don't sound like you're in an electric picnic at the minute, around, Betty.
No, I'm not. I'm in Mullingar at the moment.
No, but Betty, take us back. I suppose 30 years. I was a bit surprised when I saw the 30, and then I kind of, it certainly resonated with me, because I can remember the time when TY first formed. But on that thing I asked there a minute ago, why was fourth year always skipped in school? What was the reason? How did that first become a thing?
That I don't know, Ronan. It's an interesting question, but I do think that why it's called fourth year is because of transition year. Because year 1, year 2, year 3 is straightforward. That's first year, second year, third year. Then we had TY, and then because people had done 4 years, I don't know, they just decided then, well, we'll call this fifth year and sixth year. But it just kind of caught on. There was no particular reason for it, And in some schools, they still call fifth year, fourth year. So it depends on the school, really.
Absolutely, yeah. So the idea for TY then, when did that first, become an idea? And I suppose, how did schools begin to look at pitching that to parents and students? Because it might have been deemed initially as an extra year in senior school.
Yeah, I think it was the National Curriculum Board who sets curriculum for schools, the NCCA. They decided that skill-based learning, that it would be a good idea. It was already going on in other countries, and they looked into it and thought it might be worth trialling it. So it was piloted, believe it or not, over in schools in Roscommon and in the West before it started here. All over. And, it was about giving kids a break from the juniors, from the old intercert, which it was then. It's now the junior cycle, or junior cert. But it was really, it was to give kids a break from that study, to give them a chance also, which to me is still, coming from my own situation, I suppose, is one of the best strengths in it, to give kids an idea to think about their future, to do some work experience, some meaningful work experience, see what kind of work environments are out there, and where were they, which ones excited them the most in the process. Now, that's an invaluable, and it's an invaluable time to do it, because you have to make a decision going into senior cycle on subject choice. And you have to have an eye to what career you might like or what course in order to make sure you pick the subjects that are relevant to your course that you would continue on with. So from that point of view, it was that. It was also a great time for development, for enjoying school, for taking away the formality and not having homework, and for developing relationships, better relationships with your own peers because you're doing more fun things with them, better relationships with your teachers, and just building it up yourself, giving yourself that break, that extra year of maturity, which is absolutely invaluable. And another thing about it, Ronan, is the ESRI, they did some research as well, and the OECD, and on average they found that students who did TY, as opposed to students who didn't, scored about 40 points extra in their Leaving Cert, which is a huge amount, you know. So, like, there's huge benefits for it. Certainly anything that has lasted 30 years in education has stood the test of time, and there is a value in it. We were mentioning there some schools it was compulsory. You find a lot of the private schools make it compulsory. I think it's to do with their running of, you know, it's their fee paying. They need that financial stream as well. Other schools make it very much like a choice. But you would still find nowadays that if there are 5 classes in third year, you would still find at least 3 classes out of the 5 will go ahead and do transition year, which is huge. And it's a great testament to the success of transition year.
Yeah, I'm looking at an article here from, I think the Irish Independent, from around kind of middle of 2023, and it reckoned at that time that about 75% of schools nationally offer transition year, and it's taken up by around 45,000 students annually. So it's obviously gained significant momentum in those 30 years. Has the curriculum or the structure of a TY year, has that changed rapidly? I mean, you touched on there, given people that chance maybe to investigate and explore where their careers might take them. And one thing we know in the last decade is lots of people now don't even know what they'll be working at in 5-10 years' time. So does TY adapt to kind of meet those needs and give students the guidance that they need?
Yes, well, I think it does from that point of view, because the labour market changes, and if you're going out doing work experience in the labour market every year is different. But also I would say it's very much up to the school. It's a very kind of a bespoke curriculum that the school decides what can we offer our students here, what different programs can we put in place, can we bring them to the outdoor pursuits to get to know each other, what bonding, like what little bonding exercises will we put in at the beginning of the year to cement those relationships and for everybody to bond and get to know each other and build a good atmosphere. Every school has a budget of their own, and that budget can vary hugely. So they do try to in consultation with the students and other staff, they try to put together a curriculum that they can afford the best possible opportunities to give to the TY students. So that's how the curriculum evolves. Now, you'll be looking at things like maybe a trip to Achill, doing outdoor pursuits. You could be doing a young social innovation project. The mini company is still there, believe it or not. What other things you would have? Well, subjects as well. They would definitely try to keep the language stream up, the French, the Irish, the Spanish, the core subjects. There would still be some classes in maths and English and Irish and the languages, of course, and some science-based. So there's also that opportunity, and they use it as this to give a sample of all the subjects that are available in the school at senior cycle, so then students can make a more informed decision as well as vis-a-vis what subjects they enjoy, what they like, and that does make 5th and 6th year an incredibly easier journey for them.
And do you think, are the naysayers still out there then? Do people still put on almost that old hat and say, this is just an extra year in school, it's a bit of a DOS, nobody needs it? Or has, if it's 30 years on the go, has that argument almost closed out now because of the success of TYs?
Yeah, I think that argument is closed out, but there are some students, and school environment is not for everyone, and it's just too hard to sell to say to them, this is going to benefit you. And there are some students who will inevitably say, no, look, I just want to keep going. I just want to get into 5th year, 6th year, out. Everyone's journey is very personal. But I would say in general, the feeling is that extra year gives everybody in the house a break. when the student isn't involved in study, just after their junior cert. So, like, when you see that in the house too, the parents want it as well. They want a break. You know, it's tough going, the routine, trying to keep a routine going at home, students doing their homework every evening and so on and so forth. So, like, there's a lot of people right behind the junior cert, and it would be, I would not see it not going ahead into the future for sure.
I know one thing that certainly in my own mind when it came to like the idea of transition year was put to us in school. I had no intention of doing it. I want to just move on, do the final 2 years and keep going. And I suppose one thing that I kind of said, well, what if somebody wanted to repeat the Leaving Cert and it adds another year then onto your kind of secondary school cycle? Is that a consideration for people, or are less and less people inclined to repeat the Leaving Cert at this day and age given the myriad of options that's out there now?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a time when that happened. Now, doing TY never prevented a student from repeating if they wanted to. That was never an issue. However, nowadays there are less and less every year of students repeating because there are more avenues into the courses that they want. There are postgraduate courses, there's apprenticeship courses, there are tertiary courses. So really, the need to repeat has diminished hugely. So students are not really there. It's completely different. There was a time in my own school in CVS with Mullingar when we had a fully designated class of repeat students. They would have come from other schools into us, and it was there for them. But gradually that phased out because there was no longer a need, because students were getting their courses, they were progressing on through the post-leaving cert course PLC system, through the apprenticeship system, or through doing another degree, and then going ahead to do a postgraduate that was relevant to it. So nowadays there are very few students compared to what there used to be repeating their leaving cert, and that is a good thing.
And I'm sure funding is obviously a key factor of transition years. So if schools are going to get funding to allow them to run a transition year, they surely have to report back to the department then with kind of, key metrics and statistics from it as well. Is that a major part of it, like that? It
is a huge part of it. And like, the schools are inspected. The inspections, when an inspection comes into school, the transition year, the content, what the students are doing, that's all inspected and reported back on, and those inspections are available for anybody to read on the Department of Education website. And they make recommendations, and the school acts on those recommendations to see where are the challenges, where are the good points, and building on it. So transition year is inspected just like every other subject and every other year in the school, which does also add that quality assurance to it.
And is a transition year, is it accessible to everybody, to all students, or is it more prevalent in maybe slightly better off or well-to-do schools?
Well, it's available in all schools, DESH schools. It's, schools that have special allowances because their students might be coming from, less affluent backgrounds and so on. No, it's available to all. But schools then, if they decide they're only having 3 classes, and they had more applicants, say the applicants exceeded the amount of places available, they do kind of a little interview process, and they go through it with the student and they talk to the student to see, is this the best option? And that can be challenging for schools, but thankfully it doesn't happen that often.
Well, I was going to say it sounds like it's a thing that's here to stay, but the fact that it's 30 years on the go already is a huge testament to it. And as you said, definitely something that people, and obviously attitudes are changing to it and approaches, and again, if it can show a huge benefit to students too, it sounds like a worthwhile project for many involved. Betty McLaughlin, as always, an absolute pleasure. Thank you, and talk to you again soon.
Thank you, Ronan. Bye-bye.
So if you're out there and you've done transition year, if you were one of those early adapters back in the 90s, maybe 1994, 95, 96, anytime in that era, if you did a transition year, let me know. 083 30 10 103. Let me know what you thought. Was it the best thing ever? Was it the worst decision ever? Or were you somewhere in between? Let me know what you felt. If you were somebody who went out and did work experience and that ultimately led you into a path or opened the door into a career that you may never have expected, let me know as well. If you'd felt, do you know what, I got lazy and it made me take my mind off my studies, let me know too, because do you know what, everybody turned out okay anyway. I can absolutely guarantee it. We have a couple of texts in. Somebody says, I think TY is a brilliant concept. It gives students more time to decide on what they want to do, as I think students are going to college much too young. My granddaughter did TY last year and she had a great time. They went on a trip to Berlin. She did work experience in a local hotel and also did a week in a business setting. So yes, I think it's a brilliant idea. Thank you for that, Ina. And somebody else said, could I just say, when my granddaughter did her LCA many years ago and applied for a job, she put her LCA on the application form and she was turned down and told the LCA was not acceptable. She was very disappointed. So that came in from Teresa. That's an interesting one. We'll try and dig a bit deeper into that one too. But yeah, lots of people coming in there texting you about transition year. So I'd love to hear from you if you were one of those people. I could have been one of those early adopters in my school in the first year to do it, but no, I want to just go and get out the other side at that stage. But let me know, 083 30 10 103. I'm going to take a very short break. After that, I'm going to bring you a brilliant music story that is in no way linked to Electric Picnic.
Saturday View on Midlands 103 with thanks to Lumcloon Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. LumcloonEnergy.com.
And you're very welcome back. Thank you for all your texts there so far on transition year. Lots of you getting in touch there to say about doing it, and largely many people saying very positive experience and one that she certainly benefited from. But I mentioned before that I'm going to bring you a bit of a music story, and one that has no direct connection to Electric Picnic anyway, not that I know, and certainly for the weekend that's in it, that could be considered a bit refreshing given there's so much talk about it already. But probably a band that you're extremely familiar with. Very, very famous, world famous band, headed and fronted by two brothers. Now, the joining of the second brother was really, I suppose, a major turning point for this band. He joined and he decided he wanted to kind of take creative control and sort of oversee it, and they became one of the biggest bands in the world, certainly kind of late 90s and into the noughties as well. But believe it or not, one of their founder members and a key player on their absolutely groundbreaking first album, Definitely Maybe, has a huge Midlands connection. Massive connection, so much so that it's going to be officially recognised by Offaly County Council in Kinnitty in the next couple of weeks. So to dig a bit deeper and find out more about this, I'm delighted to be joined by Tony McFadden by John McFadden from Kinnitty in County Offaly. Very good morning, John.
Hi, Ronan. How are you?
I'm absolutely fantastic. This is tell us who we're talking about here, I suppose. Take the listeners out of their misery.
So we're talking about Tony McCarroll, and Tony was one of the founder members of Oasis. In fact, he would have even been in the band just pre-Oasis, The Rain, which would have been before, say, Noel Gallagher would have joined the band and they had changed to Oasis. And as you said, you already mentioned kind of what Noel did in terms of his input thereafter. But Tony was, like that, one of the founder members of Oasis, and of course he performed on Definitely Maybe. And he also performed on the key singles, Whatever, and Some Might Say, which was taken from the album What's the Story, Morning Glory as well.
So, I mean, a significant impact on that band and in kind of musical history across the UK and the world as well. Take us through then, like his connection with County Offaly in particular.
So many years ago, my own mother actually went to Manchester with Tony's aunt, Mary. She would have been married on the time. Mary McKenna is her name now. And I suppose a number of weeks or months later, Tony's mother, Bridie O'Donnell, moved over to Manchester as well, where she would have met Tony McCarroll, Anthony McCarroll, Tony's father, over there. And of course they married, and Tony, like myself, was born in Manchester. And of course, many years later after that, then Tony was a musician, as was his two brothers, Aidy and Jed. And Tony was one of the founding members of Oasis. So to kind of go back a little bit in time, for a small period of time in the 1980s, Tony's parents would have moved back to Kinnitty for, I think, about 2 years period. And that's where the link really comes into sort of Kinnitty, in that Tony did his first gig in terms of having an audience that wasn't maybe, say, friends, family at a function like that, in Kinnitty Parish Hall. And it was actually Tony McCarroll on the drums, and it was Seamus Bradley on the tin whistle. And I can confirm I was there. I was there as a child myself at that particular gig. So that's where Tony did his first official public performance, which is leading to the recognition of the Oasis plaque to, I suppose, commemorate that Tony McCarroll played on those Oasis records that sold millions and millions globally. But his actual first public performance was in Kinnitty Parish Hall. in the 80s.
Unbelievable. But you've planned a really interesting evening of events. Tell us what's happening.
Yeah, so on Saturday the 31st of August, what we'll do is we'll have the plaque unveiling at the parish hall in Kennedy. Anyone who knows the village, the parish hall is the hall right behind the Catholic Church there. So that'll be the first thing that will happen at 6 o'clock. And then thereafter, at 7 o'clock, there will be an in-conversation that will be between myself and Tony, where we'll discuss a number of, I suppose, questions about his time in Oasis. But also there'll be a little bit of a different slant, because it's his first, and possibly only going to be his only ever in-conversation event in Kennedy. After that part of it, there'll be questions from the audience, so whatever they want to ask and delve deeper. And from that, then there'll be obviously meet and greets, and people get paid, pictures taken with Tony then. And then the last part of that evening then is we will go over to Giltraps, and we'll have a night of Oasis music in that pub there. And actually, I should mention, John Glendenning is the co-organiser of this event, and through John and through Offaly County Council, it was those who funded the plaque that's going on Kennedy Parish Hall.
And I know the plaque unveiling is going to be free of charge. You're selling tickets for the in-conversation bit, but again, the proceeds, you're going to give some of the proceeds back to the Kennedy Community Centre. Yes, that's exactly what we're going to do. The likes of the donations, both the Parish Hall and the Kennedy Community Centre. Yeah. So talk to us about your own relationship with Tony. Then, is it something that continued after that time, or have you always maintained contact, or did you discover the connection again and seek out to make a contact with him?
No, it would have always been there. Kind of as I said, Tony's, for example, Tony's aunt went to Manchester all those years ago with my mother. So growing up, we would have always went over to the McCarrolls because I lived in Manchester, I suppose, until I was 7 or 8. So we would have went over to their house, all through those years. Needless to say, then my parents moved to Kennedy, and when we moved to Kennedy, our neighbours would have been all of Tony's family, his aunts, uncles, were all our neighbours in that time period. And of course, Tony and his brothers used to come home pretty much every summer after they had moved back to Manchester, but they come over to Ireland every summer. So the contact was there all the way through. So it's one of those kind of before Oasis, during Oasis, and post Oasis. And so there was always that kind of communication. And I suppose myself and Tony would have got involved in another thing that he did about 5 years ago when he was doing his live podcast tour with AMA at the time. So because my own thing, Tony would have influenced me to get involved in the music industry. So I ended up myself being a music manager and being involved in many aspects of it. And indeed, I suppose the most recent one is I work in LOETB in Byrne in September. We're going to be launching our music industry and event management course. So that kind of leads into, I suppose, trying to get the message across to younger people who want to know how to organise events, how touring works, how streaming works, all the industry bodies that they need to be aware of, like IMRO, RAP, MCPS. All those kind of mean nothing to people now, but if they want to be involved in the industry, it'd be vital for them to understand, to develop their own careers, or maybe people they want to work with, So, no, my own self, I'd say Tony influenced me to get involved, and probably going back all the way to the when he was drumming with Seamus in the Kennedy Parish Hall. I remember probably being a kid thinking, God, I wish that was me, Yeah,
what a lovely output, that you're now one of the, the main person behind the music industry event management course. And we just look across the Midlands over the summer months and even beyond, and all we see is music and events like that. That's as right. Well. Take us to course itself. What level is it at? And what type of person are you looking to kind of get involved with that?
First thing I'd say is somebody who loves music, and that's the starting point. The type of person is, somebody who wants to be involved in it. So it could be somebody who is a musician themselves. They want to figure out how to run events, how to do a tour, maybe how to market themselves. It could also be then that somebody like that who is working with somebody who's a musician and that they want to become maybe a manager or promoter or an agent. Now, I'm using them in the one sentence, but they're all very different tasks within the industry. There's nothing in terms of age or anything that's completely irrelevant. But I'd say somebody who's focused, who wants to be involved in music and events, that has to be the key. And it really starts from there. And if it's somebody who's a songwriter, my mantra is always the same, and that make sure you write great songs. If it's on the industry side of things, I suppose, make sure you learn the industry, learn to observe, listen, probably know when to speak, and most importantly, maybe sometimes when not to speak. But no, so it's really anyone. I'd say the starting point for that is make sure that they have a love of music, and hopefully everything else will follow. We'll give them the structure and how to put a plan in place for what their outcomes are thereafter.
And how lovely for people from around the Midlands if they're passing the Kinnedy area. So from Saturday, August the 31st, there will be a blue plaque on the wall of Kinnedy Parish Hall commemorating the fact that Tony McCarroll, one of the founding members of Oasis, spent some time in Kinnedy, and his impact and legacy still continues as well to yourself and John Clennan and all these people. It's a lovely story, and who knows, maybe in time, imagine if you rejoined them and they got the whole band back together and you get them to Kinnedy for a big festival. There'd be a statue to you in Kinnedy at that stage.
You never know what might happen, Ronan.
Not at all. Listen, John, it's a great one. We're looking forward to hearing more about that too, and maybe even seeing Tony on the day. John McFadden, thank you so much for that this morning. So there you go. Like, isn't it great sometimes when you know of somebody from the locality in the area and you go, do you know what, they've had a bit of an impact on whatever section of society it might be. Let's go and do something to commemorate as well. So yeah, Tony McCarroll will be in Kinnedy on Saturday, August the 31st for that unveiling and for that Q&A session, and then just a night of Oasis music afterwards. So speaking of Oasis music, here's Live Forever.
Maybe I don't really want to know how your garden grows. Thank you very much.
Text or WhatsApp your Saturday View to 083 3010 103. Saturday View on Midlands 103. With thanks to Lumcloon Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. LumcloonEnergy.com.
A couple of people have texted in just inquiring about the tickets for that meet and greet event with Tony McCarroll, one of the founder members of Oasis and the drummer on the album Definitely Maybe. And you heard John McFadden, they're talking about the event, one of the co-organisers with John Clendenin. So you can buy those tickets for €20 with some of the proceeds going to Kinnedy Parish Hall. If you go to Will We Go, that probably ticket and website you're becoming familiar with, willwego.com/Tony McCarroll and John McFadden. If you kind of stick into Google there or go on to Will We Go, there'll be an icon or a button there and you can book your tickets for that. They're €20 each, and say some of the proceeds are going towards the parish hall there too. So promise to be a really interesting, really insightful evening, that from somebody who was there from the very start. Those real formative years of Oasis when they really just launched themselves into the big time with Definitely Maybe, a seminal album from the 90s, and followed up of course then by a couple of other award-winning blockbuster albums too. You know, good times, good memories and all that. Speaking of good times and good memories, Lorraine McCormack of Feel Good Saturday won't be in the studio with me today because she's out and about at Electric Picnic. She'll bring in you Feel Good Saturday and Feel Good Sunday. So let's just get a little sneak peek and a sense of what's happening down in Stradbally at the minute. A very good morning, Lorraine.
Good morning, Ronan. Can you hear me?
You did. You're in the big time now, Lorraine. You're there behind
Here's
the
the
main
points
stage.
from Electric Picnic.
Oh gosh, yeah. Okay. So listen, what's it like down there at the minute? There's much atmosphere building there for day two?
Well, there's a lot of people asleep now, and there's a few bleary eyes coming at me now as I walk to the bathrooms and stuff like that. But yeah, I met Chase and Abby in the car park, so I was on at them. I was chasing them up to come and chat with me, so they said they would. So I'll be chasing them up now. If they don't, I'll be going around chasing them all over the place. So yeah, we've met them, and then just met a few people in production and stuff like that. But there's a few people rising now, and there's a few sorry heads feeling sorry for themselves here. But it's great. It is a great atmosphere. It's great to be here. It's just like it's a good, as the kids say, it's a good vibe.
Good, yeah. You know, we can hear. I think it's the fun fair just in the distant background there.
Yeah.
So things will be good. That'll certainly wake people up as well. In terms of getting down there this morning, traffic fairly okay so far?
I was okay, yeah. Got through Portlaoise, got through Stradbally. The guards are there and they're, moving everyone along as well. So I was okay. No, I came early. I was here for 9:30, so I don't know what it's like now, but it certainly was. I left a bit early because I was a bit worried, but no, I needn't have worried at all. And
You're
there was Michael C. waiting for me, waving at me. He was.
The real boss as well. And Chase and Abby, of course, Offaly based local band, taken to the main stage at 2:00 as well.
2:00.
Is there anybody else you're looking forward to maybe getting an old sneaky look at later on?
think the Water Boys. I know I'm showing my age now anyway, but the Water Boys are going to be on later on, so I can't wait to see them as well. So, and Teddy Swims is on tomorrow. Getting a chance to interview Teddy Swims. Won't be on air, but it'll be after, so it'll be probably on Midlands Today or socials from tomorrow evening or Monday morning. So yeah, I'm looking forward to catching up with him as well.
It sounds amazing. You're living your best life. Lorraine McCormack.
Living your best life. Tell you now.
Enjoy your today's electric picnic, and talk to you soon. The coverage there of Feel Good Saturday and Feel Good Sunday from Electric Picnic is brought to you with thanks to CHCM Property Management in Portlaoise. No mess, no fuss. Management of apartment blocks and office buildings. Go to chcm.ie for more details and get yourself a quote. A reminder of another thing that's coming up next weekend is Clara GAA's Family Fun Day and the Unit Gym Challenge. It's on Saturday, August the 24th. You can bring your sports teams, your friends, your family, your workmates and test your teamwork and endurance in the Unit Challenge. You can register now at claragaa.com. Entries will close next Thursday, August 22nd. Now on the day there'll also be bouncy castles, face painting, fab food, live music, and Lorraine McCormack with Feel Good Saturday will be there too. So that's the Family Fun Day and the Unit Gym Challenge, Saturday, August 24th at Clara GAA. And don't forget to wear your club jersey on the day and keep an eye on the Unit Gym on Facebook and Instagram for more information about that. So what a great way to round off the summer there and get yourself and your club or your society or your team or your family out there, enjoy the Family Fun Day and take on the Unit Challenge, and there'll be great prizes on offer on the day too. That's really bringing Saturday View to a close this morning. Thank you to Betty McLaughlin for coming on and talking to us about what ultimately has been the great success of Transition Year. It was first kind of conceived in the 1970s, and a trial run happened in a number of schools. It was 20 years later, then 1994, when it really started and embedded itself in. And lots of you text in about it, and lots of very positive feedback on it, and saying it was a great time of your lives too. Some maybe not so positive, but look, there's always going to be that. It can depend on the school, depend on the time as well. Certainly, but as Betty said, lots of work goes into curating and crafting those courses, and making sure that they're fit for purpose, and indeed helping people as they take that next step of their career. And also there to John McFadden talking to us about Tony McCarroll, who's coming to Kinnedy on Saturday 31st of August there to have a blue plaque unveiled for him because of his time spent in Kinnedy, and again before he went on to become the founding member of Oasis. So a full night of Oasis music, and lots of interest already garnering in that, so promised to be a great night. willwego.com of course is the place to go for your tickets for that. Thanks to Nelly out in production as always for helping keep the show on the road and lining things up as well. As we say, just talking to Lorraine McCormack there, we'll be handing you over to Lorraine now from 11 o'clock, coming live from Electric Picnic, and the sun is shining, people are beginning to rise, come out of their tents as she said, and there's nothing sure, here come the good times.
Saturday View, with thanks to Lumcloon Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. Lumcloonenergy.com. Midlands 103.